All right, Robert, it's a pleasure to have you in this call. And I'm going to share my screen. We're going to be reviewing your website here for two things. We're going to be doing it for SEO optimization, so that you're showing up at the top of Google, what we would call organically. So without paying for ads, Google's liking your pages and your products and is showing you more frequently. We're also going to look at some things we might be able to tweak to optimize your website for conversion. So how do you just get a higher rate of sales or add to carts in the e-commerce website just by how we arrange the page? Any thoughts or questions before we get going?
No, not at the moment. You, Alex?
No, as of now, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Well, great. Yeah, please. And at any point, you guys feel free to interrupt me during these calls. It can be, some of my other clients have told me it can be drinking through a fire hydrant sort of thing, just kind of get them blasted. But again, we are recording this and you're welcome to interrupt at any point, ask for clarity. I'm not, I'm just want to make sure you guys are getting the value during the time. Okay. So let's do an audit here of your homepage, and let's just kind of begin with who you are and what you do. Now, one of the things that many business leaders, ministry leaders kind of miss is when we look at our webpage, we bring certain assumptions to it that other people don't bring, and that can actually reduce our conversion rate, or our purchase rate. So the way we have to look at this, and off screen here, Robert, I'm just going to look real quick. I'm going to pull up, I think I have access to your Google Analytics, and I'm just going to confirm who it is that's looking at your website with just a brief glance in there, and I'll just tell you what I see, because we want to put ourselves in the shoes of the people on your website.
Sure.
And so we want to know exactly who that is. Let me see. There we go. GA Fiamara Culinary GA4. There we go. Okay. So I'm looking and I am seeing, so we got 4,600 users to your website last month, and 4,500 of them were new users. Okay, so that means there are 4,500 people on your website that don't know who you are. They don't know what you do. I mean, presumably they looked up something to have to do with, chef apparel, but we don't know. And so we're not talking to, I know you, you know what I do, I know what you do, but they don't know what you do. And so I have to, and you have to, when we're looking at your site, put ourselves in the shoes of people who have no idea who you are, what you do, why you do it, how you do it. And we have to make sure we're communicating all of these things to them just point blank. Okay. So a couple things I noticed right off the bat. Okay. So if I am a potential shopper of Fiamara apparel, and I'm looking up something like best chef clothes, and I pop on here, okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to want to know is who are these people? What is this site? And what can I do here? And so what I know is it's Fiamara apparel. Okay. So I don't know who Fiamara is, and apparel is clothing. I look at the people in the picture, and I'm not sure that those are strictly chef clothes. Um, those look like nice shirts, but, and again, I'm not a chef, so this could be super obvious, but to the untrained eye, those just look like people looking at a camera in sort of business wear. So that is something that possibly could be confused by your audience. Furthermore, the French, I presume, chef clothing line name, the brand name that is visible here, there's no way to know if all of your audience coming here is going to have any idea what that is. How many you know um restaurant owners are going to know what this particular brand is. And I'm going to say it's probably in the minority, especially if they're ordering for the first time, because they're not going to be familiar with all of the lines of chef clothing. Any questions on that so far?
No. No, that makes total sense.
Okay.
Now, are
Yep.
we starting with this slide because the homepage, this is like a slider, so the
Yes.
original page that would come up would be different.
Well, let's refresh. Okay, and so that's great. And now one of the things is with sliders in general, you do not
Mm,
want to have a slider on your site. Is generally the goal. People do not engage well with sliders. As it
okay.
slides, it actually distracts people, and there's usually not enough time to actually know what's going on. So welcome to Fiamara Apparel, providing world-class culinary apparel since 2010. Okay, so this is a little better because I do know you're providing world-class culinary apparel. But
Mm,
you'll notice we've now moved on, and I don't know how to get back to that. What if I didn't have enough time to read it? Now I am again looking
mm,
at this thing that I don't really know what this is. Oh, okay. So
yeah,
this is how long it took me to figure out there are little buttons here. So I can go back now. Um,
yeah.
I will tell you, let me see here, users. I'm going to go to event page. Where's time on page? Users. I'm looking in your analytics here. Sessions, revenue, pages per screen, events, uh, pages viewed, search time. Let me look at that. Time suggested, average engagement time. Okay, so the average time, oh, wow, it's actually pretty long. The average time that someone's on your page is 58 seconds. That's on your website. So we have 58 seconds to get them basically to add something to a shopping cart. And so when we've
Sure.
got this thing shifting around and I'm hunting for these little buttons, that is eating time that they could otherwise have just been shopping. So
Yeah.
I would firstly recommend that you do away with the slider if and when you got time for that.
Okay.
Now, next thing, let's come in here. Now, this makes way more sense. There's a guy that's a chef with like this makes way more sense to me as someone who doesn't know anything about chef outfits. Okay, so this guy's wearing chef's clothes. He's in a kitchen. Okay, so I'm tracking here. Now, a couple more things. Fiamara Apparel. Okay, that's great. That is the brand of your business, and that you want that there. This is really actually starting to bother me because I can't keep it here.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm starting to see it as well.
You see what I'm saying? And in no
Yeah.
way am I trying to be critical. I'm also trying to just show you how a user would be engaging with this. Okay. So,
Sure.
and the goal then is, of course, to get them to add more to cart. Okay, so we have Fiamara Apparel now above the fold of your website. Now, down here is the fold, okay, where my little Windows button is on my computer screen. And this is this is a web design term, but it's just the same as like a newspaper, right? And I never read the
Yeah.
newspaper, but my father read the newspaper. And, you're looking at the headlines. And if nothing grabs you, you just set the thing back down. You never actually open it and look below the fold. And the same is true with anybody's website. Your audience is going to be looking on here to be seeing, is there something above the fold that is going to be worthy of starting to scroll down below the fold and start looking? Okay.
Mhm.
So what I want to show you here is how much of room we could actually save and then actually use maybe even more productively. So we have Fiamara Apparel, and then we're saying Fiamara Apparel here. So I already know your Fiamara Apparel, but then we're using the largest headline on the website, which could actually be bigger, but we're using that largest real estate to then say the same thing again. So we're kind of double dipping and we're not giving them any more information. So we're going to want to update this title. And what I would recommend here is something like get this by doing this. And that is a conversion optimized, basically, what do you want to call it? Like a structure or kind of a cheat from a guy named Flint McLaughlin who specializes in conversion tracking. So I would really recommend going, get world-class culinary apparel when you blank or buy doing blank. Or you could say, get first-time users get 10% off world-class culinary apparel when you enter blank at checkout, something like that. So you want to tell them what they get first and then how they get it second.
Okay.
So what, and you've already got up to 25% off apparel when ordering embroidery in bulk. So that's cool. If you offer a first time discount, one of the ways you can get your users to jump the cart, because there's for anybody watching this in an e-com site, it's not just a conversion where you get a name, email, and a phone. You've got to get them to the shopping cart, and then you have to get them all the way to checkout, and then you've got to get their card in there to go through checkout. So you have to have an incentive, or it can help to have an incentive beyond the cart, because a lot of people will look at the cart and go, "Oh, think about it," and then they never come back. And I know you know that, Robert.
Yeah.
One thing we can do, going back to I'm here now. Going back to this is you can offer a 10% discount for first-time buyers, and new users is basically 95% of your audience based on your analytics. So 10% off for first-time purchases, enter code at checkout. So in order to see the discount, they have to get past the cart, go into the checkout, enter the code, and then you've got them right on the edge, and they're like, well, that's a pretty good discount, and I'm already here. Why don't I just go ahead and push this through so I don't have to do it on another site? So that's one way you can maybe work the title and then also increase conversions at the same time. So the sub headline here, because we're now pulling from this, and I'll put this in the chat as well so you guys can play with this, but get 10% off when you make your first culinary apparel purchase. And then the sub headline supports that headline. So it might say something like, enter get 10 at checkout, something like that. So you're using both of them to paint a whole picture of where they're at. They're getting, so what can I do here? Well, I can get world-class culinary apparel. And why is this good for me? Well, it's good because I'm getting 10% off, and it is my first time, and you're offering a deal to first-time viewers. So you're communicating a lot more in a lot less space by changing that title away from something that is the same as your logo. Any questions on that as we begin?
That makes sense.
Okay. So, now what I would recommend with your button, firstly, I do like the color scheme on your website. I think it's very clean, very clear. I love the red. That is obviously your call to action color, and you don't have a lot of other colors. So I think that is good. I would stick with that. Now, I would, if you can, I know Shopify has some limitations on design in the back end to some degree, but I would increase the size of this button, because that needs to be the biggest draw on the page. Okay. So, and when you, sorry, it's going backwards on me again. Here we go. So in regard to this, learn more. Again, phrase everything that they're taking action on the users, phrase it from the perspective of the user and say, I want to, and then insert the button. So if it's get 10% off world-class culinary apparel, when you make your first purchase, and then what? I want to learn more. I don't want to learn more, shop now. Like, I want to shop now. I want to get my 10%, something like that. And so for example, if it's a download link, it's download my brochure, ! All caps. So I would make the button bigger and then fill in the actual benefit instead of something more, this is really common. It's also not, what do you want to say, as enticing. People don't want to learn more. They want to actually, get my shopping done, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, another thing that I would recommend, and I might pull up our website just to show this example, but the chef in the background, and this isn't necessarily, you could take this either way with this image. A lot of times beauty, and this is a great image, but beauty is not correlated with results. And so because you have a really great image is good, but it doesn't mean that it's going to help people purchase, it may actually reduce add to carts and purchases because the image itself is distracting. What we want people to go for is the call to action. Shop now. Get, get my discount, whatever it is, and move into your products. Now, what happens is when we have images that are front and center, you end up with people looking at the image. And what you'll notice here is what is the center of attention on the screen? It's this guy. So now, I'm looking at him and I'm like, his beard looks nice. Does, how's my, whatever. I'm thinking about this guy and not
Yeah.
about this. And so one thing we can do is add a transparent, I always forget the way to say this, but let's go over here. Click now. Kind of just a transparent. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, well, that's why I spelled it wrong. There we go. How do I say this? You can notice this kind of has a white fade on the front end. This is really easy to do on Canva, and just kind of, I cannot believe I am forgetting what that is called now. Here, let me just pull it up. Gradient. There we go. Just add like a transparent, a slight gradient to the front end to kind of, you can make the picture a little darker or a little lighter. You can add a little bit of a blur to the image itself and then put that white or the black screen in front of it. And then you'll notice we have a white kind of filter gradient on it. And the text is contrasted as black. So if you went darker with the image, you would want to go lighter with the text. Okay. And so what that does then is it will give I'm going to go back to that image. It will, you're still going to see the chef back there. He's still doing the chef thing. And what it does is it's communicating subconsciously what this site is about, but it's not taking the conscious attention away from what they should be doing. This is where they're focusing, and then the image is creating the feel of the website. And so, like, there's a phrase that says, what's it say? Good web design is beautiful. Great web design is invisible. And that's kind of what I would encourage you to go for, is the images are here. They create the emotion and the tone for the website. Oh, it's a chef. This is like my kitchen that I work in. And what am I reading? I'm reading this. So I would bring this either larger or to center, and I would put the fade over this, either making it darker or lighter, and just making sure that text is, contrasted with whatever color you go. And then the button is larger, so the attention then is on the text and the feel comes from the image. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does give it very similar to like, how you have your site.
Yeah, and it's
the image isn't the biggest part of the homepage. It's
right.
what it says.
Yeah, the title is calling them to do a thing, and that's where you want the conscious attention, is on your instruction. All right. Now, another thing that I would recommend to get yourself more room to sell right here on the homepage is, I really like your logo. Your logo is great. I would recommend moving this logo off to the left so that this line of options can come up higher. Because what's happening is you're using up, this is your navigation menu here, and you're using up maybe a fifth of your homepage for that. And really, it should probably be about 90, maybe 90 pixels. So where we could have maybe some of these things peeking up, and you'll notice like right there, that actually looks good. If your logo actually fit right here, you could fit this whole header area, and then they would be like, oh, there's more right here. And now we're already kind of getting them further down this page, but we've got this kind of big giant white bar. So I'd recommend maybe even shrinking this just a little and just moving it over here and seeing if that's something that you guys can do. Any questions on that?
No, that makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer of getting everything up the page a little bit more so they can see below the fold.
Absolutely. Okay, so those are some recommendations. Now, what I would do with sliders is I would just turn them into um, you know, top top brands and have like squares like this, top sellers, on sale, new arrivals, that's great. But if you're selling specific brands, you could say shop top brands, insert kind of some squares for those brands with images of the clothes in those brands so they can go directly to those if they want. And so that would be a way to cut the sliders down so things aren't moving too quickly for people to figure out. And then you still also have all of that available. And on a site like this, your homepage, you want it to be a sorting site. So for example, if they go to pants, we'll just say, they show up on your pants page, you're selling pants. You want them to click on a product and buy it. On your homepage, when people just show up, you don't know what they're buying. We don't know if it's shirts or aprons or pants or, clogs or whatever it is. And so what we want them to do is to self-sort to wherever they want to be. And so we want to make that as easy as we can. And so when they scroll down, we've got new arrivals, great, top sellers, on sale. What I would recommend is you test this in different ways, because so putting myself back in the role of a new user, this is my first time. I'm scaling up my restaurant, and what am I interested in? Am I interested in what you have new arriving? And again, I'm not an actual chef, but putting myself in those shoes, I don't even know what the brands are. I'm just looking for something to get moving here. I don't really care what's new on your shelf, but I am maybe more interested in what other people think are the best because they're selling the best. And I may also be interested in what's on sale. Those two make sense to me. I'm not sure about this one. So, this is something you can, of course, test and look at your sales as you change your homepage, look at add to carts and see if you add things to homepage in a certain way. Does that increase or decrease even just your add to carts over a, say, 30-day time frame on a normal month, and watch to see those conversions. But another way you can test this is, say, just remove all of this, all three of these, and say top brands, and then have a square with each of the brands. Then you could try something different and say coats, pants, aprons, shirts, women's, men's, and try it that way and see if that helps people sort. And so what you're looking for in your analytics is engagement on the front end and add to carts. And you're looking for the way that your users want to filter themselves into the right thing. Now, if I had and this is, so when we do marketing, basically we're just making a theory about the nature of the world and how humans act. So human nature and how the world works. And so when I'm looking at these options, we've got new arrivals, top sellers, on sale, or we could have it for brands, or we could have it for type of outfit, coats, pants, aprons, shirts, that type of thing. If again, putting myself in the role of a first time, at least to your website, a first time purchaser, potential purchaser on your website, and I'm looking for my people, I'm probably thinking the type of clothing they want, which would be more in line with how you've got your, menus set up. So I might want to test, coats, chef pants, chef, aprons, and then having these broken down and maybe put that at the top and see if that increases the engagement that you see in your analytics and if it increases your overall add to carts in any measurable way. That would be my theory. And then you confirm or reject a theory based on whether or not it improves your site performance and your add to carts and sales. But those would be three things I would test on the homepage to see if it makes any difference. Any questions or thoughts on that?
No, I think that makes a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I I was kind of wondering at one point what we're gonna do with those boxes anyways, and now
Yeah.
the new arrivals and yeah, the on sale, the problem with the on sale. I mean, it's a great idea, but we have to keep it updated,
Yeah.
and that's very difficult.
Yeah. And the goal is just to have all of this appear in the way your website viewer wants to, at least on the homepage, they want to filter themselves. Do they want to filter themselves through, like I'm looking for coats, I'm looking for pants, or Do they want to filter themselves by what do other people think the top sellers are? What's on sale? Are they interested in the sale? I mean, is that, you know your customers, are they really always interested in the sale? And that's the number one thing. When everybody calls in, are they saying, hey, Robert, what are your newest arrivals? We're ready to buy again. If that's not a thing that you hear, that probably shouldn't be your leading sort of thing. So figure out how they want to filter themselves. Yeah, any questions on those types of things before we move on?
Yeah, I think I think that was very informational. That was great.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I like you got embroidery, and then you've got some products. Featured brands, love that. That you've added, I think, since we started working together, and this looks really good. So that makes sense. And I do see if I click on this, I go to that brand's page. So that's even better. I'm looking at the link in the bottom left-hand side. I would try to speed up the loading. I do see you've got the lazy load feature, which is great for page speed, but sometimes it's a little bit slow when it comes in. You saw that bottom load. I would, if you have like a how many milliseconds delay there is, and this is probably more for Alex, I would speed that up just a little bit, because at first when I'm waiting, and I'll just refresh here. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to go back up to the top, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh here. I come to the page, and this looks good. That faded in, that looked great, but I'm kind of waiting here. And for a moment there, I'm like, oh, okay, there's a problem with the site. And so you'll notice every time I slide down, there's a little bit longer of a delay than I would probably like. So I would shorten that delay if you can.
Is that something that you can do in the back end of Shopify or how?
It's a good question. That would be probably more for Alex if Alex runs the site. Um, I I will not say I'm an expert in Shopify, but a lot of websites have what is called a lazy load feature, and it does seem to
Okay.
be active on your site, which is good, because what that means is the whole website doesn't have to load that all the page all the way down before someone can interact. It just loads the top of your page, and when they scroll, it loads the next section. And that's a great way to set up a page. I would keep that. I would just have it load in the next section a little bit faster so they don't see just a bunch of white,
Sure.
for a quarter second or a half second.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. All right. So, I mean, I think that would be some really awesome improvements just on the things we've discussed. Sign up for discounts. Think that's great. Subscribe to our newsletter for discounts and new releases. I think that's awesome. Okay. This is small enough here. I think that's okay. You've got, Facebook, Instagram. I'd probably reserve that for the footer, and that's small enough. I don't think that's going to distract a lot, but usually I would say it's probably not the best idea to include all of your social media on the
Yeah.
page where you're trying to sell stuff, because what do? We do marketing, we do advertising, and we get them off of Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and all these other places. They come to our
We don't want to
website,
send them back.
and then you send them
Yeah.
back. Right. So that's not something you'll commonly hear, but that's just kind of the way I've seen that. So anyway, so any questions about homepage or anything there before we move on to products?
No, I think that was really good.
Okay,
That
awesome.
was great information.
Okay, let me see here.